People always ask me what prompted me to choose such a specific paradigm shift as the one which I'm about to discuss. I have to laugh a little bit when this happens because the truth is that I wasn't inspired by some scholarly article or profound moment of self-realization, but by a post on Pinterest. The post read something to the effect of, "The fragility of man is far greater than that of nature. Climate change is not an environmental issue, it is an issue of the survivability of man." This blew me away completely and changed how I and others view climate change, shifting me from the mitigation mindset, which is traditional, to one that prioritizes adaptation first and mitigation when possible, like exemplified by the post. This has re-sparked the climate change debate, generating new arguments and further exemplifying why we shouldn't just be worried when it comes to climate change. We should be terrified. Based off of current research, this paradigm shift came about because of new scientific research, a push for civic participation, the analysis of individuals' ideologies in politics, and advocating for an adaptation over mitigation mindset by the scientific community. To understand the significance of these factors, we must first dive into the context surrounding climate change. Thus, I present to you Climate Change Research 101, a history. Climate change research began in 1988 and was spearheaded by the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Its first report in 1990 defined climate change as the gradual modification of climate factors. Slow and gradual modification, that is. This is research by Weber. The second report, in 1995, found climate change to be anthropogenic in nature, research by Hagen. This, along with the Freon scare, research by Dunbar, founded the Go Green movement. This was found to be, unfortunately, not very successful, which raises the question, why were mitigation tactics, when applied to the masses, so unsuccessful? The answer lies in the ineffectiveness of climate change campaigns in relation to human nature. Humans prioritize the immediate gratification over long-term benefits, as well as our personal politics and ideologies over sound yet abstract evidence. The politics of our age. This can be circumvented, Weber goes on to write, if a person is sufficiently alarmed or has a negative personal experience. He warns against using this strategy, however, because of two potential downfalls of the implications. First, the finite pool of worry theory, which states that as a person becomes increasingly worried about one thing, they'll become proportionally less worried about everything else. And the single action bias theory, which states that even a person who is sufficiently worried to the point of acting will only take one action, as opposed to the many that are needed. Now that we've explored what led to climate change concern and why mitigation efforts were unsuccessful, we can now explore how the paradigm shift occurred. In the mid-2000s, the IPCC generated indisputable evidence, this is 95% certainty or greater, that climate change was anthropogenic in nature. But they were having an incredibly difficult time communicating this to the masses. New research by Weber in how to minimize the confounding effects previous. The first paper he wrote was in 2010, this is a 2016 paper, outlined 4 potential strategies we could use to help minimize these confounding factors. The first is the legacy effect. If people believe that their actions will have future implications, they're likely to choose a positive change as opposed to one that maintains stasis. Numerical versus qualitative data was also another one of these strategies, which states that a person who's low in numeracy, anyone but a climate scientist that is, will appreciate word evidence more than number evidence. Third, the order in which ideas are presented. Anything that is presented as a default is automatically given more priority than the subsequent ideas. And finally, the specific phrasing of issues. The right prefers global warming, while the left prefers the phrase climate change, and this was very important. But by 2010, when a lot of this research was occurring, and then 2016 when it was published, climate change was deemed too far along to mitigate. It was built into our atmosphere. How was the human race going to persist if mitigation efforts were essentially off the table, no longer an option? Hagen writes about modern urban planning, which is a way to physically adapt to the changes which will be coming, as well as hopefully mitigate worsening this process. It accounts for 3 major factors of urban contributions to climate change. The first is the urban heat island effect, which is the theory that places within an urban environment are hotter than the surrounding areas by adding more vegetation and more reflective surfaces to disperse the heat back into the atmosphere instead of centralizing it. Second, by accounting for urban migration with the creation of more traditional neighborhoods where everything is within walking distance. And third, by creating durable infrastructure that will be able to weather the weather that's incoming. Climate change is now an inevitability, but this does not mean that we are unable to prepare for it. Through new scientific research, the analysis of ideological and political views, the encouragement of public participation, and the advocacy for adaptation over mitigation by the scientific community, we have created a massive paradigm shift in the climate change industry. Hopefully, this will be enough to generate the worry necessary to enact climate-conscious policies in the general public and prepare the human race for the disasters that are incoming. The only question left is, were we too late? Thank you.